It helps as well if you don't mute it. Welcome back. Greetings and well-met salutations. Welcome back. All that good stuff. Good evening. Hello. Yes, it is eventually another episode, another edition, another broadcast, podcast show of Excalibre. Click the like button, mute the volume. Hopefully you can actually hear me. Have we got audio? Yes, we have audio. Okay, well, at least that's sorted. Get screen sorted. It's even less professional than usual this week. This proves why it is not a good idea to put me in charge of a big red button. Because while I was trying to rush to get myself organised, and I'd just gotten up to go and put the hot water in the coffee cup ready to have extra caffeine to keep me going. And I was moving my mouse to click the little cog wheel on the handgate control room so that I could change my audio settings. And I moved the mouse just a millimetre too far and clicked the hang up, the big red phone that ends the call. Yeah, nice one. When I got back into the room, because of the way they're changing the functionality of the hangouts and they're gradually fading them out, I didn't have access to the control room anymore, so I couldn't actually start the broadcast. So even though I could get back in the room, I couldn't, I didn't have the big red button to start the broadcast. So basically I had to scrap the previous scheduled show and reschedule it and start it again. So yeah, we got here eventually. Welcome back again, folks. Welcome back again to the craziness on this moon day evening with another edition of Excalibre. It's a star date, 24th of the 6th. Say that with no teeth, the 6th of 2019. Yeah, it's almost 8:15. So yeah, definitely late starting. I had to get some caffeine, and that was the bane of me trying to get caffeine before we were going and trying to click that button to change my audio settings. I just should have left it as it was. Yeah. It's too late now. You've done it now. But hopefully people have figured it out. Where's my chat room? Hello to everyone in the chat room. Hello, Steve. Hello, Lupson Tatro. I'm glad you found it. I'm sure a few people are probably confused because they would have seen the previous one go up and then they're waiting, looking at it, and it's not working. We shouldn't laugh considering why do a show if you don't want to actually, get the audience seeing it? Otherwise, you might as well just be talking to a mirror. And that's partly what I wanted to mention tonight. Some of the stuff talking about some of the things that have been part of the conversation over the last week. But the main things, I could go into talking about Boris and Hunt. Sorry, I've never said that live on air before. Jeremy Cunt. Oh no, I've now said it again. Oh, why do I keep saying Jeremy Cunt? I can't help myself but keep saying Jeremy Cunt. I don't know why. I shouldn't laugh too much. Yeah, whatever. Get on with it. I could talk about Boris and all that kind of ridiculous circus, but I think people are well aware of that and they know how it's going. And yeah, it's part of the news attainment now that the news has been turned into just another form of entertainment, a spy game, an ongoing live role play narrative to keep you occupied and entertained, and occasionally throw you some red meat. They throw a bit of bloody meat into the ring to keep people going, I can't look, it's so terrible. He says, well, I'm talking about the news so often. Yeah, that's part of the problem, trying to discern your way through the information streams that you can actually find bits of news that are genuine and that could, represent things that are going to be occurring in your reality in the near future, so it can give you some warning, so you can change direction. You can batten down the hatches, ready for the storm that's ensuing. And in the subtitle this week, I've put, what was it, 10 minutes to midnight. I thought about trying to sing the Iron Maiden song, 2 minutes to midnight, just changing that chorus line to 10 minutes to midnight instead. Seems appropriate at the moment, but then it's been an appropriate point of view for quite a few years now, because there's been ongoing conflicts and new conflicts beginning all over the place for the last several years. And now a new one is knocking on the door. Well, I say new one. It's not really a new one. It's just the fact that now it's got to the crunch point where it will soon begin. And even though, if you weren't aware of this, I'm referring to the recent incident of Iran shooting down a spy drone of the USA, a USA piloted spy drone. And I say it that way because even though it's the USA that's using the technology, actually the thing itself belongs to their military, etc., etc. The information, the data that is being gathered by them is being passed to other members of the NATO alliance, the Five Eyes treaties, and all that kind of stuff in this new surveillance state world. So it's not really just the USA doing this kind of stuff. And obviously there's multiple sides to that. Iran's doing its own thing and they're allied with Russia and China and blah, blah, blah. So I'm referring to Trump's statement after the incident, where he had been initially talking about, we will react, we're going to do something to Iran, they're going to pay, they've made a big mistake, all his usual kind of bravado. And then he announced, this is over the weekend, he announced that, oh no, I changed my mind. With 10 minutes before the attack was due to happen, I asked the general, oh general, how many people are going to die if we do this? And the general said, probably about 150, sir. And Trump said, oh, well, we better not do it then, okay? We don't want to kill people. Why would we want to kill people? It's not like all them people in Pakistan that we shoot with drones. Oh, no, these people are Iranians. We don't want to kill the Iranians. But we're happy to kill the Pakistanis and the Uzbekistanis and the Afghanistanis. Maybe if it was called Iranistan, it would be okay for him to have done it. But yeah, I'm being deliberately sarcastic, using rhetorical sarcasm to make a point. Yeah, he supposedly is now Trump the humanitarian, because upon hearing the song 10 minutes to midnight, he was like, oh, we don't want to keep feeding our babies into the war machine. 150 people. Oh, no, we can't kill 150 people. It's all right if we kill 1 million people, 1 million Iraqis. Yeah, they can die. That's, that's an acceptable cost, isn't it? Yeah, Madeleine Albright told me it was okay that 500,000 Iraqi children died. Yeah, that's okay. But 150 Iranians, oh no, we better not do that. Oh no. So the PR opportunity for Trump to play a game of high stakes world nuclear poker, where he's bluffing to try and get a better deal in some fashion, which I'm sure some of the commentators may be trying to claim that he's playing some kind of 7-dimensional underground backgammon or some shit like that. And he's actually, playing clever moves to manipulate the opponents and all that kind of, apologetics. That's basically what it comes down to. There's a lot of apologetics pushed around about his presidency and his character. But the reality is he used this opportunity to make a PR stunt to present himself as being some kind of humanitarian and caring about the fact of like, oh, well, the Iranians, they shot down one of our drones, but our drone didn't happen to have a pilot on it because, excuse me, Mr. President, drones don't have pilots on board. Of course, it didn't have a pilot on it. But his claim, his justification was that because they didn't actually kill any American personnel, no pilot on this, weird drone that has a pilot on it, then it meant that he shouldn't kill any of their people because they haven't killed any of his people. So it makes him sound like he's some kind of, hero, and he's thinking of the, oh, we want to save lives, we don't want to be killing people in this conflict, etc. It's total bullshit, and also just part of the maneuvering and agendas. I can speculate that maybe this was more about pausing the agenda because they didn't quite get the Allied reaction that they were hoping for, or maybe they decided that the public reaction wasn't quite on board enough. Because when they actually start attacking Iran, because they already are in effect using cyber attacks and sanctions, which is both acts of war, can be used as a claim, a justification as an act of war in international law. That's what they're doing at the moment. So maybe they think there's not quite enough public backing on board to back a direct military confrontation of any kind, because once they start doing that, it is an escalating scale of where that is going to lead to, because Iran is allied to Russia and China plus others, and it's a major provider into the global oil market, which means it affects every nation's economy, even those that claim that they're however many percentage towards being green with their energy supply. The world still relies on oil primarily as its major fuel source. So if you suddenly cut out one of the major suppliers, it's going to affect the entire global market. So the entire globe is going to react to whatever happens between Iran and the evil empire, I'll call it that, the axis of evil. So you got all that kicking off over the solstice, and in a odd synchronistic way. And as well, as I just looked at the clock now, and it says 2022, so even more twos at the moment. I've been seeing a hell of a lot of twos and fours, which is a very grounded number. Anyway, the synchronistic combination of it's the solstice weekend and we've got this crap kicking off, and this episode happens to be episode 23 of the second series. That's 223, which while over the weekend I've been hearing various stuff about the you are being groomed as some of the alternative media, what really is more like the mainstream media or the sort of the new media, has started to cotton on to the fact that the programming being utilized via new technologies, it's moved on from the television, and now they're utilizing the new technological platforms to do the same kind of programming on the general populace. And some of the supposed alternative media is, finally supposedly catching up to that. I think the reality is they're trying to move in on and appropriate the information and knowledge that has now become pretty much obvious to a large part of the population, and has almost certainly, I can argue, has become undeniable because there is so much evidence now to back it up. But it's not just anecdotal evidence anymore. There's more whistleblower evidence, there's more scientific evidence to back up the kind of effects that the use of this new modern media format has on people, and the way the various layers of the control system, the mechanisms of your society, the governments, the corporations, etc., is utilizing that said platform, that technology, to manipulate people. It's becoming more and more obvious and undeniable to a lot more people that this is actually happening, this is going on. this is far beyond just commercial advertising and marketing. This is about political agendas and manipulating people en masse on a global scale and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I'll come back to that, but that's a lot to do. That conversation I've been watching bubbling away over the last week, I think it stems off the back of the censorship push, but I'll get further into it in a minute. That conversation had me thinking about things around the mirror effect, the reflection effect that some of this technology does. You notice I don't often stare directly into the camera because I have the camera there on the desk and I'm looking at the screen so I can read the chat room and look at what's going on in the hangout room and look at any screen shares that people are showing and whatever. So I'm not exactly looking at myself, you know, I'm looking at what's happening around the broadcast that has me on the camera there. But a lot of this format ends up being very much like a mirror. I've talked recently, and I've talked about this many times before, the smart technology, the screens that we're now so used to, when they're not powered, they are very much like a black mirror. Hence the name of that TV series. Charlie Brooker titled it that way deliberately. He knew what he was doing when the whole premise of that series is based on that concept. You know? So yeah, it's all about mirrors. And this is episode 23. And Trump is looking at himself in a mirror of his, what he believes is the public adoration of him standing up there going, oh yeah, I was such a humanitarian. I don't want to kill 150 Iranians. You know, oh, fuck all them Iraqis. They can all die. Yeah, I don't care about them. He's believing, well, I know he doesn't truly believe this in the back of his head. At least I doubt it. I don't think he's quite that psychotic. He's very much an egomaniac, but I don't think he's a psychotic. So it's not like he believes his own illusion. But he can play that game. He can pretend to believe it. So he can pretend to believe what he hears himself saying in that mirror reflection. So when he says, like, you know, oh, the general told me 150, and I say, oh, no, we can't do that. Better stop the attack then. 10 minutes to midnight. Oh, no, change my mind. He can pretend to believe it and make a very good photo opportunity out of it. And because so much of our society now is geared around that image, the illusion that is presented on a screen, that's part of the reason why he is the president he is part of the reason why he is the Twitter president, because so many people now give more credence to those faces they see on a screen, just a face on just pixels on a screen, that they will accept more readily whatever that face says, even more so if it's as simplistic as possible, if it panders to the lowest common denominator as much as possible. You ever notice how Trump never gets into any technical jargon about anything? Not even really business, finances or anything. You watch all the interviews with him and he dances around a lot of topics because he obviously just doesn't know. So it's not like he's ever seen on camera utilizing a lot of, it might be jargon, and often jargon can be used to bamboozle people. You get that kind of academic expert overuse of technical jargon just to confuse the listening public and run them in little circles. You know, a lot of politicians are very good at that, but Trump isn't. He just doesn't do it. He keeps his language very, very simple to appeal to the lowest common denominator, and he just tells people exactly what they want to hear, or he just keeps it nice and simple, like everybody likes him, he's a great guy, they all think he's fantastic. It's like, well, where's the details about his career, his history, his accomplishments, his failure? You're not saying anything, mate. You're just saying, yeah, he looks good, doesn't he? Yeah. So his illusion looks good. His image looks good. And that's what you endorsing him on, and that's it. You know, you're telling us that everybody loves him. Yeah, and I'm just using a really simplified example of what you could hear him do again and again and again in multiple public announcements, you know. Like when he mentions his good friend Netanyahu, when he was running for election, what was it, a couple of years ago now, year plus ago, and Trump did this little video presentation that was shown to the Israeli public and basically just said, yeah, he's a great guy, everybody loves him, he's fantastic. Okay. Here's a turd I found in the garden, it's great, it's fantastic, everybody loves it. Are you going to buy it? Okay. Yeah, the illusion, the mirrors. Meanwhile, even though he called off the strike, which was, just suggested, no details about exactly what they were going to do. They just said they were going to do something, they were going to strike in some fashion. And I think a lot of people, I was expecting the kind of thing that they did to Syria, where they fired, 40 plus cruise missiles at Syria, and Raytheon were like, yeah, we're going to the beach this summer, guys. Very nearly did that this time. I thought that's what they were going to do again, just chuck out a barrage of armaments so that they can give some more money to their corporatist friends who actually make the weapons in the first place. Got to keep that military industrial complex turning. It provides jobs, puts food in people's mouths and then kills them. Yeah, we're going to feed them first and then we'll kill them. Because that way we can feed the next lot of people and then kill them. And then the next lot of people and then kill them. And it just goes round and round and round. Meanwhile, he called off the attack. But they've made statements, I say they, because it's not just Trump, it's like Pompeo and whatever as well, making announcements that they will further the sanctions, they will still keep the pressure up, and military action has not been taken off the table. So in other words, folk, the direct strike agenda has been paused for a little bit. Like I mentioned earlier, possibly I think they were reconsidering just how much support and backing they're getting from not only their allies, but also the homeland public in all of the connected nations, all of the allied nations. If the public ain't going to swallow it, they won't get away with it for long. Certainly not once it starts escalating and becoming a greater conflict. And at the same time, Bolton was in Israel meeting with Netanyahu. Now, Trump is on the TV and on Twitter telling everybody, we considered 150 potential deal, we better not do it. And meanwhile, Bolton's over there chatting it up with Netanyahu. And, a quick little bit of research into who Bolton is and what he's all about, I think, you'll get the picture that I'm trying to point at here. So while out of one mouth, Trump's presidential mouth, they're saying, oh no, we're not going to take direct military action at the moment. Meanwhile, he's what could you call him? He's minister for causing as much war and conflict as possible. Whatever. You could come up with a silly acronym for that, but Bolton's over there buddying it up with Netanyahu about how they're next going to, create some kind of incident that they can then use to keep pushing the pressure for direct military confrontation with Iran. And, cyber attacking at the same time. And while all that's going on, again, during the solstice weekend, or, around the solstice period, there is the supposed Middle East peace conference happening, which both the Palestinians and the Israelis have said they're not going to bother attending. So there's this supposedly peace conference happening that's supposed to resolve this conflict between those two peoples and, try and get some resolutions and movement over what's going to happen on that territory around that area, Gaza and all that kind of stuff. Neither side is willing to attend because they both think it's not worth it. It's not worth the time, waste of space. If anything, the proposals that were suggested, it's not really a peace deal. It's negotiated land theft. That's what they're trying to do, is just keep pushing that point of, no, there will never be an independent Palestinian state again. You are occupied territory, and we'll just keep gobbling up chunks of it. If you want us to carry on being your beneficial, caring dictator controlling your very existence, then you have to agree to let us take yet more of your land, and then we might, we'll carry on giving you minimal amounts of food and building supplies and water and access to your own economy, all that kind of. No. You give us a bit more and we might let you live. You keep giving us more and we'll let you live a little bit longer. Circus of illusions. You're starting to get the picture now. The picture is just an illuminated circus show. And all of this is inching along towards escalating that conflict. Syria isn't still really over, even though, the supposed enemy forces, the rebels, have been primarily dealt with. Look at what's happening in Iraq. And how many years has that been going on? Longer than Syria. And they're still having the same kind of attempts at rebuilding and controlling the insurgents, the rebels that keep popping up here and there, like whack-a-mole. It's not going to end anytime soon. Afghanistan is still occupied. Ukraine is still creaking at the seams. Libya is pretty much he's a failed state according to the international talking head media that talks about these kind of things. It's a failed state. What exactly that means, Libya has not disappeared off the face of the planet, but its governmental structure has gone. There's different warring factions there now. This is going to keep creeping forward. It isn't going to lessen unless major parts of the population start kicking up a fuss and changing direction, or trying to change things in such a way that the need to keep pushing towards that single unifying global structure is no longer pursued. The supposed need, I can't think of a better word to describe it, because it's not a genuine need. It's a fed desire. It's a created belief. Now, the other part I put in the subtitle, which might not necessarily make sense in a connected way, but you know what I'm like. I do this every week. I find things that may seem completely tangentially different to each other, but I can find connections between them in that bigger picture of what's going on. I put in the subtitle, Alexa, is this question redundant? And this is something I've been saying to people for a few years now. When you encounter one of these devices that supposedly listens to you and answers all your questions and needs, if you want to order the latest thing off Amazon, you no longer have to use a mouse and a keyboard. You can just talk to the empty air and say words like magic that make things appear on your doorstep. It really is like Hogwarts now, folks. Now you can just go, Alexa, send me jelly beans. And jelly beans will appear eventually. It might take a little time, but it's not that much time, considering that you're getting this stuff just by calling out to the empty air. And of course, the amazing magic of the electronic digits in your account that get deducted because you're buying stuff online, basically. Alexa, is this question redundant? And I've suggested this to people simply because it is a logical conundrum. Can you answer that? Try it. You can't really answer that question because it is a question, therefore it's not redundant, but it's not really asking anything within its own content, therefore it is redundant. It is and it isn't. It's like Schrodinger's cat. It's both at the same time. And at the moment, the algorithmic systems that they're put everywhere, this is not yet AI, as a lot of people have the concept of AI. It's getting there, it's very close to that kind of thing, but it's not quite there yet. At the moment, these are still quite in many ways, they're quite simplistic in what they can actually perform and function. Like you can ask it to order you something off Amazon. You can ask it to play you a song. You can ask it a question that it will then look up on Wikipedia for you and read out the first paragraph on the page it finds. That kind of simplistic computer algorithm would not be able to comprehend what that question is all about, because it's not really asking you anything in the content of the words, the sentence itself, even though there's a question mark at the end of it. It's like a rhetorical question that is getting you to think about what the hell is this all about? Why are you asking me that? What's the context of why you're asking me that? What's the meaning of asking me something like that? What's the purpose, if there is any purpose or purpose, to asking me something like that? Why would you want to ask me something like that? The computer system can't deal with that kind of thing yet. And I hope that it's something that is simplistic enough that even if people don't get the potential complexities of logical conundrums, it's not that complicated. But, when you start getting into these kind of things, logic can become a big puzzle to wrap your brain around. Think like Rubik's Cube kind of stuff, Yeah, some things can really bog you down in a complexity of chasing that logical resolution, but this is quite simplistic. Should be fairly digestible by most people. But it's the kind of thing that will get them thinking about, well, what exactly is this computer system doing for me? This algorithm that supposedly answers any question that I have, that can play me whatever song I ask it to, even though, I could actually own that song myself. Maybe I could even get an instrument and learn to play it myself rather than letting some thing in the cloud recite it for me in a digital format that degrades the actual audio quality and rant about modern music and whatever. Anyway, the point being, Alexa, is this question redundant? Hopefully these kind of things will help people think about what exactly these tools are doing for you when you utilize them as a tool. In other words, the potentials of what you can get out of it if you're making use of it with that reservation that this is just something I want to make use of. It's not my life. It doesn't rule me. I'm going to make use of it as if it's a tool. Like when you get the scissors out the kitchen drawer to cut something open, it's a tool. It has a functionality. Not, I have this screen stuck to my face because it is telling me what my life is, and I believe more in the illusion that's presented to me in that mirror reflection than I do in the world around me when I put the device down. For a long time, I used a phrase as well that was, you will be assimilated. And I deliberately took the word assimilated and just split it in two, added the extra S and an extra M, and it becomes assimilated. To immolate something is to set it on fire, to add flame to it, to cause it to burst into flames, to ignite it. Your ass will be ignited. It's the same as saying, liar, liar, your ass is on fire. And again, with that one, I was hoping that people get that connection to that kind of Borg, hive mind, collective subordination of the self, of the individual, of the separation and loss of privacy, all that kind of stuff, because the Borg itself had been such a meme for so many years. It seems to be coming back again into the conversation because now, as I mentioned earlier, a lot more of the media is actually starting to talk about hang on a minute, maybe we ought to think about the way this technology is turning us all into like the Borg. Remember the Borg, the collective? Resistance is futile, resistance is redundant. What's going on here? Maybe we should think about this. Maybe we need to put down our smart devices. It's like, yes, do it. Stop talking about it and do it. You will be assimilated. as this stuff is being rolled out, and as a lot of your society has been changed, the infrastructure of your society has been changed to utilize this new technology, and now it's being done in such a way that it usurps and surpasses the old ways we used to do things. It might be a bit long-winded saying it like that, but it's basically the same as me talking about the cashless society. You know, if they can keep persuading people to use technology to do their transactions, eventually they can fade out cash, and then you won't be able to make private transactions that cannot be observed by the system. Observed, monitored, tracked, controlled, interrupted, curtailed, etc., etc. Look at China as the example for that, and that's just when we're talking about the financial systems. Add into that the social crediting system, and that means it can affect pretty much every part of your life. Because if the system decides that you're a naughty person and you're going to be put on the naughty step and you're going to be re-educated through behavioral molding, then thanks to that device that links you into the new modern infrastructure of your society, you can be controlled and manipulated to try and force you to behave in certain ways. This is not just affecting your sense of fashion. This is not just advertisements to make you think, oh, this summer everybody's going to be wearing yellow, so I'm going to buy a whole new wardrobe full of yellow clothes. Oh, yeah, that's lovely. I choose to wear yellow this summer. Supposedly choose, because I've been so influenced by the stuff being shown to me. But this is far beyond just that level of commercial advertising and marketing. This has now got to the stage where things can be implemented that will behaviorally adapt you to the new norm. So they will adjust what you can and cannot do, what you do and do not have access to within your society, such that unless you change your ways, unless you follow the route they present to you, your life will get harder and harder and harder until eventually you're either pushed or forced or fall through the cracks and end up basically in destitution, or becoming a sofa surfer, or living in a caravan somewhere on somebody's land, etc., etc. Often, and certainly for a few years prior to around this time, prior to I think last year and this year, whenever I'd talk about this kind of aspect to a lot of what's been going on, the usual fingers would be pointed and people say, oh, fearmonger, doommonger, you're just painting this nightmare dystopia, blah, 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 blah. I was trying to project into the future based on what was actually happening at the time and things I'd learned about the agendas and where they were trying to get to, the goals they were trying to achieve. And I say they in a general sense, because obviously there's different groups and different individual power players and all that kind of stuff. But there is a general narrative that the majority of them, certainly the biggest power players, all are adhering to. They're all pushing towards a single world system that is a technocratic, a technological, a technocracy based infrastructure system. There's an absolute mass of evidence to back this up, and there's a good amount of reasoned argument and discussion on the subject. So it's nothing about fear-mongering of, oh, the dystopia in the future that might never happen when we all get implanted with chips. For years, I've presented the idea that you don't need to be implanted. You know, they've been doing this to us for a while now. They've been getting us used to this environment such that we adopt it willingly. We think it's the thing that should be, it's trendy. And now it's got to the stage where it's not only trendy anymore, it's not just about fashion. Now it's a requirement. you need to have an online presence. Why don't you have an online presence? What's your email address? What's your mobile phone number? Why don't you have a mobile phone? Why don't you have a Facebook account? Why don't you have a Twitter account? On and on and on and on. And for a good while now, it's been behavioral nudging, behavioral molding to get everybody into this new virtual infrastructure where they are so enamored and inured into their digital avatar, their online persona, which includes their biometrics, their financial, medical details, their Facebook activity, their contacts, their friends, emails, their chat data, etc., getting you into the mindset of thinking that is worth far more than your actual real existence, because your real existence now will be in the gutter if you don't keep up your online persona. So if you don't keep feeding that illuminated illusion with data, because that's in effect what you feed it with, which is based on you burning energy to think and press your thumb on the screen. You know, maybe you're thinking, maybe you're not, maybe you're staring out the window while you're just pressing the button on the phone. But it's your energy being converted into data, which then for them is a new currency that they move around. You know, in the technocracy system, data is the most valuable resource because the data is required to create the efficiency within the algorithms to manage the actual running of the society. So the data is utmost, it's paramount. They have to have the data. So I've waffled around a long way around that. You will be assimilated. I watched a video called You Are Being Groomed. Just search for that if you want. It's being pushed all over YouTube at the moment, which is usually a dubious indicator, or I should say it's an indicator of dubiousness as far as I'm concerned, because whenever Google starts trying to deliberately, forcefully present me with content on YouTube and whatever, where, you know, subjects that I don't normally look at all of a sudden are being put in front of me on the recommended sidebar and on the home page, or certain channels that I've never looked at before are all just like filling up the recommended. There's like 5 videos from somebody I've never heard of before. You know, YouTube has put out statements where they're basically talking about how they're trying to tweak the algorithm, the search algorithm, so it doesn't force people into echo chambers of radicalization. You know, discussed that a lot recently. So they will claim that as plausible deniability of why certain things are being presented to me, because they're concerned that I might be falling into a funnel that's leading me to radicalization. So they're offering me some alternatives that I might never have thought of myself. Yeah, bullshit. It's their plausible deniability to go, yeah, we want him to hear this propaganda narrative now, so let's give him that one. Let's show him this. Every day for the next week, we'll present him with videos about this topic because we're determined that we're going to get him into that topic. You will talk about flat Earth. Yeah, is the end of my finger flat? Yeah, I'll give you the flat finger. This is direct manipulation that they are doing now with this technology for that behavioral molding. And the reason I mentioned that one video, You Are Being Groomed. I know we've been talking about this kind of stuff for quite a few years now. And for a number of years, I pointed out how this technology is the equivalent of an addiction factor. Quite a few years ago, I thought it was more about psychological addiction only. But as time has gone on, it's become obvious that the way the technology is implemented and the techniques, the methods that they use to exploit it are exploiting biology. They're exploiting the chemistry of your body to actually addict you in the same way as an addictive drug would mess up your biology such that you become reliant on constantly taking that drug because you need it because you're addicted to it. Like me with tobacco. But this now has become more and more obvious to the point that, as I say, the mainstream media and even the supposed alternative mainstream media is now having to talk about this subject and broach it with their audience in such a way that they are supposedly, helping their audience see how this stuff is being used to manipulate them. The reason why I'm a bit sort of offish about talking about that one particular video and its contents is because I think there's other reasons for why that particular channel is doing this. And when they have other connections to other dubious subjects, like QAnon and crap like that, it's, you don't seem to be listening to your own arguments because you're doing and saying things that contradict your own arguments. So I'm not sure I really buy the content that you're now currently trying to present. It seems more like you're here for damage control. There was another one that I mentioned several weeks ago that was a little mini documentary that was supposedly about the new lost youth that have been addicted to social media and how now it's become people have become aware of the fact that social media is addictive. And I remember saying at the time when I mentioned it then, it's like, are these people only just catching up? We've been talking about this stuff for years. Yeah, what is going on here? This becomes more like damage control. This sounds to me like it's more about damage control. They know that more and more people are starting to get the point, get the idea, starting to see the way the methodology is being used against them, because the evidence, even if it's anecdotal, is now becoming undeniable because there's just so much of it. Everybody knows somebody who has been censored online in some fashion, banned or put on the naughty step on Facebook or whatever. Everybody knows somebody that has either experienced it directly themselves or is connected to somebody that has. Most people know of someone who is addicted to social media, or they know somebody who has a child and their child is so addicted to social media that you can't take the phone or the device off them, because if you do, they have a screaming tantrum fit. We've been talking about this stuff for a long time, and now it's got to the stage where this year we're jumping out, we're like leapfrogging multiple Rubicons. The Rubicon as a cliche, as a phrase, is like you cross the Rubicon, which is based on Roman history. When Caesar crossed over the Rubicon, meant that he, that's it, deal's over. He's now going to be sieging Rome because it's now a dictatorship. It's done, dusted, no more arguments. We're doing this kind of thing. There's been many things happening this year that are that kind of end of one chapter and beginning of another. You've crossed the threshold. There is no, this is not, we're not going to like this, we don't really want it kind of thing anymore. Now it is done. There's one little screen share just to mention this. I think I heard somebody mention this on the show the other night, plus the cannabis-based life form shared a link to the story as well. So I wanted to mention it because it does somewhat connect into what I'm just saying. Well, more than somewhat. It's a large part of what I'm saying. You can see that, hopefully. This year's story in The Guardian, obviously, or the mainstream or the news companies would have covered it to some degree. But it's mainly about the story itself. Title on theguardian.com: Man who refused to register son's birth loses High Court case. Father said he did not want his baby to be controlled by the British state. Now, the headline and the little subtext doesn't exactly explain it very well. And, it doesn't exactly sort of give you the idea of, well, what the hell's going on here, other than some guy doesn't want to register his son. But the most interesting things, and the reason I wanted to mention this, is because of some of the things that they actually quote the father as saying. because this is quite relevant to, as I say, the amount of information and knowledge that is now reaching the general public, and a lot of the evidence, even though some of it is anecdotal, that is building up to back up people's reasoning for why they're looking at this stuff and going, hang on a minute, I don't want this shit. But the father told the judge, "We are each our own sovereign. We are governed by a common law, but only to the extent that we depart from three principles. These three imperatives are to do no harm, to cause no loss, to inflict no injury." Now, in and of itself, that statement in a court might not really get you anywhere, because all you're doing is saying, well, I adhere to common law, Mr. Judge man, Mr. Wig wearer, I adhere to common law, so, the stuff that you're saying to me now, I haven't broken common law, so I'm not concerned about what you're saying to me because I'm sticking to common law. And yeah, in many ways, use of common law can help you, but it's also being deliberately painted as a scapegoat. And this connects back to several years ago with what was called at the time the sovereign citizen movement and the free man movement. This is adding into the narrative, the official narrative, that anyone who utilizes those kind of approaches or makes those kind of claims or statements is just some crazy person that believes fairies run the country or whatever. They're just labeling people as being in some way mentally unstable or incapable. And the other bit that he says as well, registering the birth would make the child an asset to the country which has boarded a vessel to sail on the high seas. So that bit as well. His belief that registration will cause his son to become controlled by a state which he perceives to be authoritarian and capricious. Now, keep in mind that particular statement, that father's objection was based on his belief that registration will cause his son to become controlled by a state which he perceives to be authoritarian and capricious. So what was the state's initial reaction to this guy not registering his son? Well, their initial reaction was that the council ruled it had the right to step in as the child's institutional parent to register the birth. And the family, the couple, the child's parents are now under investigation by social services. But that's the main point. The council decided it had the right to step in as an institutional parent to register the birth. And the guy was worried that the child would become controlled by a state which he perceives to be authoritarian and capricious. They stepped in and said, we're going to own that child. He was worried that the state would step in and own that child. The state has said, we're going to step in and own that child. Do you see the extreme obvious contradiction here of how the guy has done nobody any harm? If he and his family, him and his wife, his family, are capable of raising that child themselves without any help from the state, then why does he need to register that child? Even if he does require help from the state could provide some help to that family without the child needing to be registered. The state would just need to know and confirm that the family has a child. They don't need to register the child. So help from the system could have been provided to those two tax-paying citizens who decided they didn't want to register their child. But the registration is the main thing that the state wants, because they need the data. They're not really that concerned about the living being, because if they were, their primary concern would be to just provide that for the child to be safe and well cared for. But no, they want to step in and register the child. So the data is more important to them than the living being. Where's my screen gone? Get back to there so I can stop screen sharing that. And then that brings me to the one other story. I'll try and wrap it up quick, guys. I know I've gone a bit over the hour, but because I was late starting, that's my excuse. I was late starting. Another I've said this a few times recently. Another shout out to that guy Scott Webb. Go and check his channel out. Get subscribed to him. Check out his videos. He keeps an eye on the mainstream press, and he doesn't just, he's not just repeating what the mainstream press does. He checks through the articles. He'll read them out, and sometimes not all of them necessarily, and he'll add his own reasoning and evidence and knowledge about a lot of these agendas onto that analysis of the mainstream stories. A big shout out to him. He mentioned an article earlier. I've lost that screen again now. Where's it gone? There it is. He mentioned an article in the Telegraph. I can't exactly show you the entire article because the Telegraph wants me to register with them before they'll let me see the whole article, but I'll just screen share the top of the page so you can get the idea. And it's on the telegraph.co.uk. From drone swarms to AI border guards, how futuristic technology could be used to police Britain's borders. That's the title of it if you want to look it up for yourself. But as you can see, I can't show you the whole article because Telegraph won't let me. It is quite a long article as well, but if you're interested in these kind of topics, it's worth checking out. And the reason I wanted to mention it primarily is because the article talks about using drones and surveillance systems, because there'll be an algorithmically based data center that monitors what data is coming in from the drones, etc., and then checks that against databases to see if the people being viewed by the drone are on some kind of watch list or they're immigrants or whatever. So it's connected into AI-based systems. But the main reason I wanted to mention it is because even though at the moment, and as they have been deliberately building for the past several years, the public fear, whether it's real or not, and I'm not suggesting that you are in fear, this is just what the official narrative and system is pushing out and the propaganda leverage that they are using. The public fear of illegal immigrants or dangerous people like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, sneaking into this country illegally to carry out attacks and stuff like that. This fear has been whipped up such that now they can use it as a justification to begin implementing the use of drone and AI systems to surveil the borders. The article itself sticks to that as the topic. It's talking about the technology involved, just the drones and the AI systems, etc., and the fact that it's all about keeping an eye on the borders, like on the Channel and on the north coast of France and on the Northern Ireland border. That's another major point with this. That's what that article is about. But that's the plausible deniability and the justification that because you're afraid of the immigrants, aren't you afraid of the immigrants? We've been showing you all these horror stories for years now about how dangerous they are, and they're all coming over here to take your jobs and rape your women, and the immigrants. So now when they suggest the solution to this immigrant problem is to have these new automated drone systems, that means guaranteed we'll catch them now, folks. Whereas this technology is not really about the immigrants and the borders. It's about you. Because this technology can be applied anywhere, not just on the borders. And a lot of this technology is already implemented, whether you know it or not, whether you're aware of it or not. I'm not suggesting that there are, thousands of drones flying overhead right now and you just haven't bothered to look up, so you haven't noticed them. No, it's not quite that stage yet. But there are some drones up there that will be moving around at an altitude, which means you won't really notice them unless you were purposefully, deliberately looking. And even then, it's like trying to find the cliched needle in a haystack. Unless you've got some other way of trying to detect their movements and stuff like that. The likelihood of you just spotting one by looking up in the sky is very, very small, negligible. But these kind of devices are already out and about. And that's just the drone tech. in terms of the data gathering surveillance tech, this stuff is already implemented. Some of it was implemented by the corporate commercial system. So all of you that have a store membership card or a credit card that you use for doing your regular shopping or whatever, all that data is that surveillance tracking of you, where you are, where you did your transaction, all that kind of stuff. And as well, a lot of the councils, I think probably all of them, certainly the major boroughs, the big councils, will be doing the same things, data gathering from all your interactions with their systems. So whenever you interact with the state in any way whatsoever, that interaction is being harvested. The data from that interaction is being harvested and amalgamated, and they are utilizing it to surveil you and your activities. That way they can profile and use those profiles to improve, again, plausible deniability, improve their efficiency of how to run your society. So these things are now being suggested because of the potential immigrant threat. But really, it's about you and harvesting your data, because they need the data. If they're going to have this super efficient technocratic system, then they need the data to feed into the computers to figure out the algorithms to decide how best to distribute the resources that they're going to distribute. Yeah, who's allowed to have a cup of grain out of the grain warehouse this week? The other reason I wanted to mention that was, another story which I didn't grab the article for, but it is out there if you have a little look for it. The suggestion or the proposal that they want to get rid of all privately owned vehicles in Ireland. Now, there's another one that I mentioned quite a few times. Over the years, I've mentioned it here and there, but recently I've mentioned it more than a few times because I think it's important to remind people that as they push towards this automated vehicle infrastructure, which is reliant on 5G, so the two go hand in hand primarily, but a major part of that agenda is that eventually you won't own a vehicle. And that's one of the main points I was trying to raise often, was like, auto driving cars means eventually you will not own a vehicle. You won't need to. Why would the state's attitude will be, why would you need to own a vehicle when you can summon one whenever you need one? All you need is your smart device. Oh, you don't have a smart device? Well, how do you survive in the world without a smart device? Didn't you know existence now requires a smart device? If you don't have a smart device, you'll disappear. You'll vanish out of existence. You don't need to own a car. And now it is being directly proposed. Ireland is talking about no more private ownership of cars. That's what it's been suggesting that to start with, but that will expand. If you look into the story, I think they do talk about industrial and commercial aspects as well. So in other words, no more logistic companies, no more truck drivers moving stuff around. All those jobs will be gone. They'll all be automated, and those systems will be owned by corporate, international corporation, megacorps that operate them as franchises within each city. All side notes, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, corporatist contracts and deals to have him provide infrastructural services to the USA government. It's already happening, folks. It's not in the dystopian future they might do this. It is happening now. All these little things are evidence and indicators of the direction you're going. They want you to be living your life as if you live it in a mirror. This episode 223, I mentioned it right at the start. If you want to know why that's relevant in terms of a mirror, if you happen to not know, if you haven't heard this before, 223 was often used as a code to represent the Skull and Bones Society, but it's also relevant in terms of sacred geometry and other occultic knowledge systems. And when you if you want to send a secret message, rather than saying 32, which is more the relevant number, you would write it in reverse. You'd write 23. So you'd use mirror coding, you know, in the same way as the Economist cover for this year. If you go back and check this, was using mirror coding, because they were supposedly, again, plausible deniability. That's the phrase for tonight. Supposedly Michelangelo, Leonardo, sorry, he would use mirror text to hide some of his secret ideas and inventions. So you had to read his codes in a mirror and then figure out the code because it was reversed, and blah, blah, blah. So 23 is 32 in code speak, and those numbers connect into occultic secret societies and are indicators of manipulators in the shadows trying to steer the world in a certain direction for conspiratorial reasons. Remember, the definition of conspiracy just means two or more people conniving together to the detriment of anyone not included in their little conflab, in their little deal. So conspiratorial does not mean tinfoil hat, even though it can often point you in that direction. One other dishonorable mention. I know I had a little rant about this on Wednesday last week on the Reality Chat channel, a TV show on the BBC, on the British Bullshitting Corporation channel, that they showed for the last 6 weeks or so, called Years and Years, which was a deliberate bait and switch tactic, which they often do with the BBC. They draw you in with what at first seems a somewhat realistic perception and point of view on a concept or idea or storyline, and they drag it out, and then right at the last minute they do the switcheroo on you, and they give you the poison apple back again, and they suddenly present you with the propaganda narrative that suits their agendas. They reinsert the propaganda narrative. So in other words, the threat or the difficulty for the hero in the story that he has to overcome to achieve his samsara, he's successfully getting back to the pleasant life at the end of the story. His difficulty is that the world is falling apart, it's coming to the end, everything's disastrous, everybody's going to die, oh, it's terrible. But the answer is just plug yourself into the machine. Don't worry about it, folks. The world will carry on. All those kids who've been implanted with technology such that they have integrated themselves into the internet, don't worry, when they realize the truth, they can just declare their independence, and all of a sudden the system will go, oh, very well, kiddies, we're okay, we accept that you've declared your independence, we won't stop you from doing what you're doing, we won't prevent you from carrying on, we won't turn you off, we won't disappear you into a gulag, we won't financially cripple you and destroy your life. No, we just accept that you said you declared your independence, and now you're bringing down the state system, and we're just going to sit and watch and go, oh wow, we never realized this was going to happen. And at the same time, when you get to that cliff edge of death, don't worry, no, not a disaster. No, there is no disaster. Don't worry about it. You just plug yourself into the machine and you can become love. And then your relatives, after you've died, your relatives will be able to talk to Alexa and say, Alexa, is my loved one there? Can I talk to them? And you'll be able to talk to them from the cloud via the Alexa interactive device. Knock twice for yes and 3 times for I'd like another crumpet, please, Vicar. And in my notes I'd put it as the panopticon of the technological afterlife, stuck in the middle of a tesseract of reflecting surfaces. You are not in existence anymore. You are stuck in a universe of mirrors. You are living a life of mirrors. That is what the system is trying to drag people into. Some of those stories I mentioned, like the father trying to, not register his son, and the AI drones and whatever, might seem somewhat of a distant connection to what I'm now suggesting about how they're trying to draw your psychology into an illusion and convince you that that's where you exist. But they are stepping stones towards that. I'm not suggesting that you have no choice in it or that it is inevitable. I often talk about the inevitable rollout of a lot of this technology. That doesn't mean that it is inevitable that you will be messed up by it, or you will be caught up in it, or you will be trapped by it. You have lots of choices of how you can move forward from this point. Once you become aware of these things, you can start changing your own behavior by your own genuine free will choices, not by their behavioral molding. And the best way to do that is put the fucking device down. This thing, this technocracy that they're trying to introduce, is reliant on the technology. This is why I banged on about this for so many years, and some people just get completely the wrong fucking idea, or their brain just doesn't work well enough to be able to deal with the idea, whatever. The technocracy cannot exist without the technology to enable it. So even though at the end of the line there is a human being that is typing out those algorithms, there is a human being that is pressing the big red button, the big red button is required. If there was no big red button, then there wouldn't be anything for somebody to press. So if you don't want it to progress towards this unpleasant technological dystopian nightmare, which is not going to suit you or your children or their children to any great benefit, then put it down and stop fucking using it. It doesn't mean abandoning it completely. It is a tool that you can utilize, if you see it as a tool and nothing more. I think you need to be aware of these other elements to it, because otherwise you could forget yourself and go beyond just the utilizing it as a tool and become immersed into it, sucked into it again, especially as the VR stuff rolls out. That's gonna really tempt people, seriously draw people in. But you still have that choice of to whether you actually turn it on or not. If you don't turn it on, then it can't be manipulating you. If this technology is unpopular, then it will not be able to be utilized to control your society. Because if the majority of people in your society are not walking around carrying a smartphone, then the very concept of cashless society would not work. It just wouldn't happen, because the majority of your population would be going, why do I need to do that, mate? I've got cash in my pocket. I want a banana. Here's a banana. Here's your cash, love. Thanks very much. Bye. See you tomorrow. No technology required. All you need is the cashier needs a little box to put the money in, just for safekeeping in case there's any thieves around. But don't need any technology. Just use your brain to calculate how much it costs and how much change to give them. Put it in your little box, lock it up. Thank you very much. The less you use it, the less popular you make it, the less likely it is to take dominance over your society. I feel that to some degree, I might be speaking after the horse has bolted, as the saying goes. The horse has already left the stable now, and a lot of what we're talking about often is too little too late. Some of the infrastructure changes have already taken place or are taking place at such a pace that now any public protest or attempts at like injunctions or some judicial method to slow down the process, it's too late. It's not going to happen in time before these changes are put in place. But even if they set up the infrastructure all around you, if you're not actually making use of it, then what's it going to be doing? Other than wasting energy. They talk about the green agenda, but they want to implement all this stuff that just costs more energy. Anyway, I think I've ranted enough. Hopefully all of that made sense. yeah, don't live your life in a mirror. Try putting the mirror down for a few minutes and move around without it for a bit. I was going to mention as well the TV pensioners, pensioners protesting outside of BBC headquarters over the last few days. I wish them well, but again, it's a bit like, as Days always used to put it, it's like sending a letter to your rapist asking them to stop raping you. You know, you pensioners now have an opportunity to say, fuck you, BBC, fuck you, state government, for taking away the license. I'm going to stop paying it. Fuck you. I'm a pensioner. I've worked all my life. I've worked hard for this country. I've put tax money into this country. And you say I can't even watch the TV near the end of my life. No, fuck you. I'm watching the TV, mate. The TV licensing man can stay outside the front door and fuck him.
Oh, I was going to say, Cookie, better still step away from not just the smart device, also the television, really.
Yeah.
Just as poisonous to your mind.
It is an opportunity for those people to, like I said, break away from that. But at the same time, I can understand why for many people, when you're at that age, it's company. You know, that's the only way to describe it. Is for a lot of people, it is basically just company. You know, it's their equivalent to a social thing, to be sat listening to what's going on the TV, watching the soap operas, blah, blah, blah. That would be better suited with something like an active community centre, which, you know, happened to all be being shut down because, you know, austerity, bullshit. That would be better for the older generation. But if they ain't got that, then having some form of entertainment or something, you know, at least that's giving them some kind of connection. But yeah, you're right. Really, it's an opportunity for them to not subject themselves to that crap anymore.
Yeah, and see it for what it is. I mean, I really saw that back in 2009, I'd say, and it really struck me the fact that, you know, the agendas that they were pushing, you know, in that environment, just made you want to. Yeah, you could see it play out. The stuff I was sort of looking at back, say, 10 odd years ago. I never liked TV anyway, much, if I'm being honest. I avoided anything that was shite, which was most of it, the odd thing, but not much. So I've never been a big lover of the thing, and I could see, you know, how it can, how, as you say, you just got one voice, but there's, you know, on the ground, it's a different story, you know, and people take the, you know, the BBC or other news organisations as the arbiters of truth and delivering information that is accurate, which we know it is not.
Well, we've all, yeah, okay, maybe that's a bit too absolutist or stereotyping. The majority of us in the UK have all been indoctrinated into that. That was another thing that annoyed me with that "you are being groomed" video. It was like, we're far beyond that stage. You're talking about the kind of indoctrination that takes place in school. You know, you've been indoctrinated into this system, which includes the perception of the BBC as being some kind of beneficial authoritarian voice. You know, it's not. It's the control mechanism, or one of the control mechanisms of the system itself.
I think it's come a bit early, this thing, because in a way there was a possibility that it does traumatise a lot of the old people more than it would a young person, and you know it kind of creates maybe conflict between the young people to say, well, what are they worried about? Yeah, paying the license, you know, you can go and do this or you can go and watch that. And like you said, a lot of the old people are dependent on it. Yeah. But there's been a lot of sympathy for them, a lot more than I think they might get. Yeah. I mean, it is possible now with young people being so self-obsessed that you could start kicking the old and nobody's going to say anything about it. But I don't think we've quite reached that point yet.
Yeah, to a certain degree. Yeah, Soylent Green and Logan's Run come to mind. You know, at some point there is a level where the younger generation see those older people, that older generation, as being, you know, just in the way. They're sucking up my air, they're taking up our resources, and what do? They just sit in the chair and watch Coronation Street.
Yeah, I think there's always that's how it goes, isn't it, with each generation? When you look at the older lot like us, if you're in your elder years or whatever, getting onto those years or whatever, and you know, it's just, but it's growth, isn't it? You go through those growth periods, and I think it was nice to see, because I was down Southway, seeing people celebrate solstice and stuff, and it was nice to see people still come and still, you know, honor this, you know, that time of year, and still get back to, you know, the earth and nature, and connecting back to themselves, and knowing that they can be at least free, and know that there's no phone signal around most of that place, which is good, you know, or internet or 4G or anything, because it's a World Heritage Site, so there's the signal's very poor, or if any at all, nothing. So
All ages, Peter, were there.
yeah, all ages, children, older, because it's just that, you know, again, it's nice to see people who are still on that, who were looking for that sort of thing and are thinking in those sorts of ways, you know, similar to, you know, us when we, you know, say we've been talking about this stuff for years and years and years. It's not something we've just thought about, you know. Last thing, come on and did a chat, you know. This is stuff that we've all grown with and seen how society's gone and how it has been molded, like you say, you know, into this sort of behavioral molding stuff. You know, it's like, you know, you must do this, you must do that. So, but it's nice to see there's a push still, or not, you know, some push against that, and, you know, people just rocking up and enjoying something like you can do still. And there's not much on a scale of like just people turning up and now, you know, it's when I saw that sort of up at the sanctuary there, where a lot of people just turned up and decided they would, you know, enjoy their solstice up there. Great, you know, that's what you can do, you know, if as long as you take all your shit home afterwards and stuff, because again,
Yeah.
it's sour taste with locals and things of this nature. But, you know, it's nice to see people getting together, and I think the Stone Circle itself had a few thousand people around there on those couple of days.
Cool.
So it's nice.
And it kind of reminds you that you said you can't get a phone signal up there. It's
Yeah.
those phones that are dividing people. You once the young kids are on their phone, you know, they are channeled into doing the young kids thing. Even the pensioners, you know, they've got their own, you know, and it's the phones that are actually splitting people up. Yeah, and that's why I put this up here. Yeah, it's the illusion of participation. You're not actually participating at all. You just think you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
With that disconnection, like I say, that put the goggles on and you're immersed in your own little world. I like to think that people still want that personal and those, you know, those social relationships in the real life, in the real world, rather than have that as being the, you know, the way forward. Like that room full of people wearing those goggles, it's like it is like something out of, you know, that sort of.
You will be assimilated.
Yeah.
This is good though as well. I thought this scene from Society of the Spectacle, the guy saw forward so much. Those are 3D glasses, so there's still the participation that you are part of an audience where, you know, everybody laughs at the same time. You know, it's in France, or I used to go to the cinema a lot. You do get, you know, you are a part of the audience. You feel you're a part of the audience. It's better because everybody else is there watching with you. You know, when the big films come out, but
it depends the thing is, though, it depends what stimulus they put before you in that environment, you know, to get you going with the agendas that they push out there, like we say, through the entertainment, mainstream media, what they want to see, and like say, mold your behavior through that sort of medium in such a more effective way, you know, where it's literally strapped on your head. Yeah.
Well, you see the two-step process there, don't you? First, you're all sitting down as a group. You know you're a part of a group, and then you got the headset on, and everybody else. I mean, that guy in the front row. Everybody behind him could just leave, and he'd be sitting there in an empty room. But I tell you what struck me from Cookie was that episode in Years and Years where the woman at the end downloads into the system.
Yeah.
Well, they can reproduce anybody's speech and mannerisms now, can't they? Yep. That's it, man. That's the coming thing. Is he just alive? Yeah, you won't be able to tell. People will be doing a Turing test on these ghosts that are in the machine, trying to find out whether they're real or not. But all right, we had a private conversation in 2014, and you said something to me. And their AIs, you know, how good they are will be if they can even try and guess or something. But
it will get better and better as it carries on. The algorithms will get more and more nuanced and refined, so that soon enough the average person will find it really difficult, if not impossible, to tell the difference between an AI generated conversation and an actual real person.
I tell you what struck me today. I saw Dave Gilmour, the guitarist from Pink Floyd. He's selling 167 guitars at an auction, and he's going to give the money to this group called Climate Earth, and it's made up of lawyers and businessmen. And I posted underneath one of his tweets, they called it riding the gravy train, and I posted to him a page from this site that tells you how much they're all earning. Yeah, over 40 of them on an average of about 40,000 a year. Yeah, 800 a week. That's not a lot for a lawyer, is it? But
No, not for a lawyer. Are they doing multiple jobs or something?
I think they are. Yeah, they've got research people. But anyway, apparently they did one case where they stopped something going ahead. Yeah, but they seem to be tied into Extinction Rebellion as well. I mean, direct to the United Nations, these people. And I'm thinking, how difficult would it have been? Because the other guy, Roger Waters, is very prominent. Everybody knows Pink Floyd. Oh, Roger Waters supports Palestine. So how difficult would it have been 3 months ago for them to start targeting David Gilmour's Facebook, Twitter, and giving him these news articles about helping the climate, and this group Climate Earth, and they're doing wonderful things. And he wouldn't have known that that's not the headline story on the Daily Mail. Yeah, and they could feed him those stories. Yeah, lead him along. One telephone call. Oh, you met this group, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't take long to see. Again, I mean, you mentioned Roger Waters, and he's sort of been again misled. There's a lot of these they put up as spokespersons for the masses, because he's from a big band. They've done it for a long time, using your sort of cult heroes or whatever coming out and speaking out, but with just half the information and half the facts and half what's really going on. Some of the stuff he says is correct and spot on, but there's other, elements that he's not saying, he's not mentioning, because if he was, he wouldn't be allowed to say them, like the stuff that we're saying here, or about getting really to the real sort of core of why things are being done the way they are, and the agendas that they've set out over the last forever, but certainly the last, since we've been here, last 4 or 5 decades, we've seen that sort of move to where we are now, and this technocratic, or this lockdown, or this rolling out of drones, as you mentioned, the drone rollout of policing borders, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's that's interesting, because I mean, you mentioned a drone, and the drone I had in mind was the Pegasus drone, which I mentioned before on here, which is the invisible drone that the US Navy use. It's invisible, you can't see it. It's go and look it up. It's
well, one of the elements that article didn't get into, because it concentrates on mainly on like facial recognition, using visual systems on the drones to view someone and then gauge their identity from that data. But what it doesn't mention at all is that those same systems, the drones and the systems that they're connected into, will be capable of harvesting all the electronic data that the people it's looking at are carrying with them. So in other words, if you've got a smartphone in your pocket, it can grab all the data off that smartphone and copy it and send it back to home base. Everything. So again, this is why, so this is not just about them patrolling the borders. This is them introducing to the public the idea of this electronic surveillance happening all around them, and to just, see it as keeping them safe from the dangerous immigrants.
And as you said, Cookie, it's already here. It's been done. It's been done for a while. They've had this siphoning off everything coming in and going out of the digital world. They wouldn't have allowed us to use it unless they had some form of collecting it all and intercepting it, and we've seen that through how they've done it through the security services in the US and the UK, and across this so-called Five Eyes sort of, sharing data and information and all the rest of it. They've been at it forever, in that sense. It's not news, it's not new.
Since the beginnings of the telephone.
Yeah.
Because even back in the day when it was the hold it to your ear trumpet shaped thing, and you had to wind it up, and the woman in the exchange had to plug in a cable to connect it, they had people listening in to every fucking conversation.
Yeah.
Did you see see Colbert Report this week?
Yeah.
Most recent one.
Yeah.
Apparently the Amazon Alexa, it says it can't what happens is you have to say its name and then it will do something, but most people don't speak like that. You know, they say, "Oh, I want to listen to a record, Alexa," but Alexa didn't hear you say, "I want to listen to a record," because it only turns on when it hears its name.
Mm-hmm.
So Amazon have written in a new thing where it's going to record all the time, just in case, you know, it hears its name, and then it can work out what it was you wanted.
Yeah, I would argue that,
Or what you
again,
want.
that it's not really what they're doing, as in it can already do that. It already is doing that. What they're doing with that like article that he was talking about, that was his video from today, wasn't it? The Propaganda Watch one. What they're talking about in that is basically creating the justification with the public that you are now okay with us doing this, aren't you? Because you need that convenience. So you agree to us. We're now saying that, you know, oh, it's going to need to record several seconds of you. So if it's not aware when you're going to say a question to it, like Alexa doesn't know that in the next 5 minutes, I think I'm going to ask Alexa a question, however I choose to word it, that sentence might be able to fit into 7 seconds, but it doesn't know when I'm going to say it. So in other words, it has to be recording constantly.
And there's another thing I want to know about. A lot of these phones now as well, they're allowed to record data of third parties, right?
Yeah.
So everybody you meet, etc. Well, who are the second parties? I mean, nobody ever mentioned who the second parties are. Yeah, it's you and your third parties.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
party of the second part.
Yeah, who are the second party people? I mean, invisible or something.
I think you would be considered the second part, as in the person using the device in the first place, or the one carrying the device. I'm not sure in that sense. So, yeah. Maybe that's just one of those like judicial conundrums.
It's you or the company that sold it to you. One of you is first and the other's a second.
Yeah, I'm not sure which way it goes. Maybe it depends on who the plaintiff is that's bringing the case. They would be the first part, I think, so as I remember. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, when they're telling you you're right, so we have the right to take data from third parties. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're the first, you're the second, because it's
when
their
you-
contract.
It's like your institutional parent you talked about, the one who owns us, the one who says we have to register
Yeah.
to the system.
There's
Yeah.
two reasons I like that article. One, they actually report what the guy said, which is a double-edged sword. It's like at least they're showing their reading public that this is what the guy was saying, so that the viewer, the reader, then can look into that for themselves if they want to. They don't debunk it or refute it in the article. They don't say, but he was wrong or anything like that. So that's good in a way, but at the same time, it also means the system is now letting us all know that if you attempt that kind of defense, it ain't going to happen. We're still going to appropriate your property, your child. Yeah.
I wonder what happened to someone we knew back in the day, a few years back. I won't mention the name, but I think her child wasn't registered. This was way back in 2011 time, because that's when all this stuff was being revealed, you know, by like Sir John Harris and people like that. And you know, people were sort of looking at that information and beginning to look a bit deeper or whatever, and seeing other people, you know, sort of trying things out. So back in the day, I think a lot of people have done this. So it's interesting this story comes out to try and, you know, back, you know, because, you know, to try and, you know, like you say, put people off, or, you know, that's the way it's going to be. You know, it's got no choice. But as soon as you let the social services involved in the child's care, or they become aware of something, then again, that's you know, it's unfortunate, but that's how, you know, society is, isn't it? Depends where these people were living, where they were, you know, someone don't like someone because they got dreadlocks or something, they look a bit different, you know, and they, or whatever it is, you know, and then as soon as the social services become involved in that child, then it's a downward spiral, isn't it? And then this guy's maybe tried to reason or talk to them, and it's just been shut down and told to, you know, like you say, called a lunatic or whatever, gone to the court, whatever, tried to, you know, fight that sort of case. And in this instance, it wasn't successful, or it hasn't been, you know, it's just been overridden. As John Harris said years ago, you know, they just keep moving those goalposts to, you you know, override this situation, because they made the law, they own the game, they are the owners and rulers, so they can change whatever they want to change, and you know, whatever. Back in the day, it caused a little bit of a, you know, stir amongst the legal, you know, sectors, you know, the judges and all that, you know, and the magistrates and this type of thing. You know, it caused them to have a little bit of a rethink and go off and shuffle off into corners, because there was a couple of events that, I think one was trying to arrest the judge back in the day. Remember that one?
Yeah.
I think it was in Birkenhead, and they tried to go in and arrest him. A guy called, I think it was Rusty or someone like that. I think Frank, who you know, Frank, I'm sure he was involved in that as well at some point back in the day. And you know, other people, you know, and there seemed to be this kind of, you know, showing the system what the people can do. But then, as the system responds, it shuts it down, it changes things, it goes off, and you know, at the time it shook them up, but now they've got things in place which would just override anybody going in and trying to sort of say that I'm sovereign, blah 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 blah. They just, like you say, either put you in a mental home, or they'll, you know, just like say override you and then take your kid off you, which I believe the story has said the child's been taken away, I think, or is in care of.
In care at the moment, while his parents are under investigation.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, it's a horrible situation. It's awful for for those people who are just trying to express their freedom, you know, and see how the system as oppressive comes down on you when you're trying to, you know, push against it. There's other ways. I mean, I think when you take it head on, and that's the thing that was, you know, become real. That was my realization as well about all this sort of information with Freeman. If you would try and say to use that in some way, shape, or form, it would just be, you know, as we've seen, just thrown out or just not recognized, and just say, no, mate, you're nuts. You know, don't recognize that. I don't recognize this. Like trying to get out of the country with, I think back in the day, people had a passport you could get back in the day, this free man passport. And if you tried to leave the country with it, you would have a lot of trouble because you wouldn't get out. So, but people would try and argue with borders or argue with police. So, you know, this sort of energy was swelling at the time, if you remember 2009 and 10. And that was where, you know, a lot of people were getting more, you know, aware of things. And as we go forward, you know, 10 years on, we see another sort of, you know, I say the last couple of years, actually, you know, more and more people beginning to, you know, get aware of things. But unfortunately, we see the pitfalls they go down, like Extinction Rebellion and other groups that are trying to, you know, influence them, but in not, they see positive, they think it's positive, but it isn't. It's shutting them down, and it's controlling society rather than controlling the climate. So yeah,
that was why I thought that was quite a relevant and important story as well, because it demonstrates that they're letting everyone know. They, like you mentioned, they're moving the goalposts again.
Yeah,
they're drawing the fences in tighter. Because that guy, it doesn't say he was shouting and ranting in the court and trying to, you know, claim that aliens were controlling the president or any shit like that. He made a very clear statement about common law and recognizing his own sovereignty and choosing to not force his son into something that his son wasn't making a free will choice of. Yeah. If people want to be a citizen, that's great, but maybe you should let them choose for themselves when they're able to be aware of what they're signing up for. So he wasn't doing anything crazy, but they're letting everyone know that it's like, if you say this kind of stuff, if you try and use these kind of arguments, your child's going to be taken away. They're going to be registered anyway, no matter what the fuck you think. Yeah. And it could potentially mess up your entire family because now you're under investigation. This is social crediting manipulation, even though they don't call it social crediting.
Yeah. Also, the judge is coming out and saying, yes, there is common law, but money is more important.
Yeah.
Basically.
They need the data.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's, like I say, that freedom of expression, that censorship, that, you know, expel people from, you know, if they speak the truth, you know, kick them out of whatever, you know, group they're in or whatever, you know, that sort of way that they've done that. And it's yeah. But dumbing down as well, that dumbing down, I say that every week, you know, it's a slow sort of progression down to sort of, you know, the AI, like the Alexa will do the thinking for you. That's all part of that as well. You know, it's stopping you from, you know, you just ask this stupid fucking box, you know, a question or whatever. And I hope a lot of younger people see it like that as well. You know, it's just this daft thing. I mean, you know, people go and find out things much more easier now with the internet. We forget we've lived in both worlds, pre-internet and post-internet. We've been we're in both worlds. There's a lot now that outnumber us, our generation, who have only known the internet world and not the pre-internet world. The online stuff we talk about, which is why they've manipulated it to the point that they have. Because once you're born into that, it's a generational shift, isn't it? A generational change, a massive one, bigger than the television. They said when this thing was being launched back in the early 90s and talked about the World Wide Web, and watching these sort of documentaries back in the day on the Beeb about how this is going to change and revolutionize everything that we do. And yeah, they were absolutely right. But in the sense of you thought, oh, life will be easier, but not seeing the blowback, so to speak, the negative side of it, that controlling side, that knowing everything side of you, the spying on you constantly side of it,
And it's the learning element as well, because the systems are designed, a lot of this gears around social media platforms at the moment, but it's being added into everything else. Everything is being gamified. And that's one of the methods they use to exploit your body chemistry, by creating a gamification effect of reward and response feedback loop. You do something, you get a rush, a chemical rush, which is the feedback response that encourages you to continue along that pathway. And that's the thing. It's something I've tried to explain many times in the past, when I've talked about things like how cities can be laid out in a way that seems very similar to a circuit board, and there's more than just logistical planning in that methodology. This is about channeling people's energy, creating energetic flows in certain directions, or wells. So it's why cities are a hub of innovation and profit, of finances, things like that, because they're a densification of energy transfer. Back in the day, when you had to communicate with somebody by snail mail, and even before motor vehicles, you were waiting for that letter to be carried by horse from one place to another. Movement and progression and innovation went at the pace of that communication. When they densified that process into smaller and smaller areas, if you were only sending a letter across the other side of the city, it wouldn't take as long as if you were sending it halfway around the nation. That is also applicable even more so now, as they are bringing up an entire generation. It's almost since the millennials, but they count millennials as being from the mid-80s onwards. So those children from mid-80s may have some experience of life without the internet, because the internet and the use of things like social media wasn't as ubiquitous in the 80s and 90s. It was only just getting going. But if you take the latest generation, children who are born after the millennium, so from 2000 onwards, they have literally no concept of the existence of how the world worked before the internet. And most importantly, their development, their mental development, is being affected by what happens online, from that feedback loop effect. And that is the massive danger of these systems and the methods they're using. So they get you hooked on this feedback response, this gamification, chemistry manipulation. Before the internet existed, you would learn through a process of trial and error, and based on the least resistance, path of least resistance or most success. So, for example, you want to learn to sail a boat, you would have actually had to get a boat with a sail, get it in water and practice. And if occasionally you didn't duck when the sail switched tack and the bar hit you in the head, that's your learning process. And your chemistry is designed in such a way that that's how we come into this world. That's how we learn to survive in this environment. You get a success, you follow a path through the forest, and you find some berries along that path, and your brain chemistry goes, that's a real good thing for survival. So we give ourselves a little dopamine kick, so it reinforces that pathway of learning, so that next week, you come down this same pathway because you know there's berries down here, so you have a higher chance of survival. Our very biology is geared on that process. They are usurping that process by creating a system that initiates that chemistry response through no activity. So all you need to do is press an icon on a screen and you get the pixel jizz effect, like I've referred to it as before. Yeah, that creates a dopamine rush. You then reinforce that pathway, so you come back to that same thing thinking it's a survival mechanism. So children now are growing up in an environment where their very brain structure, the mind structure, is being influenced by the feedback they're getting from these devices.
And that other development as well, which is really, it messes people up, that need, the like button, like you say, the need to be liked.
Yeah,
That
that's the
need and
dopamine rush.
Yeah, that someone likes me, something likes me, someone likes me. It's like, and it's like almost like a drug, and like you say, a drug that
It is literally a drug.
that, you know, and when that like button or that, you know, thumbs down happens, or that negative comment comes, or something like that, it's like the whole world is at an end. And I used to see videos back in the day, and people making content back in the day, and having negative comments on maybe the odd video they'd upload, and having the next video would be the meltdown process of a negative comment or whatever it was. And it was like, you know, you just, you know, so it's like people will react, but then it depends on, you know, if we need to have a solution and come to some form of like getting along and seeing the work, you know, we're all on the same page, most of us, but people will go there and try and create trouble or whatever. But if we can get over those little nonsense things that we react to, like, you know, daft comments or stupid shit, you're always going to get that. And it's about how you are and how you've grown through sort of things and how you understand things. So you, those things don't even bother you. They shouldn't. I mean, it's like, well, whatever, you know, it's like, it's okay. You know, you can have your negative comment or whatever it is, but that shows me where you're at. So it's okay. It's cool. Whatever. Let's, you know, it won't stop me what I'm doing or what I'm saying or how I'm presenting or how I do this, you know? So it's, if you're trying to have that kind of effect, when that's a non-starter to, you know, to begin with. So
some people exploit, and in the recent times with the supposed alleged alt-right and a lot of the tactics that revolve around that deliberate political boxing that they're trying to get people to put themselves into, they've jumped all over that kind of concept and they've been abusing it. So you get this attitude of, well, I've got to troll you, I've got to talk shit to you because you need some negativity so you learn a lesson. That is the attitude of an abuser. You can help somebody learn without just being abusive to them. You can give somebody criticism, you can point out where they're getting something wrong or incorrect or whatever without abusing them.
Yeah, it's it takes me back to that thing I was saying a few weeks ago, you know, abusing energy, abuse rather than using it correctly, or, you know, or misusing it, which is again, there's two, misuse and abuse. So it's like, you know, use it correctly, you know, use the right word, you know, do the right things, you know, it's not, we all know what's right and wrong, like that guy who's trying to explain to the judge, you know, but you know, it's like these people will not listen to us. They're not going to listen because why would they? He lives in his big house. He believes in the system that he's comfortable in, you know, so he thinks you're nuts. So, you know, go on, guys.
Yeah, I just, there's this guy on Twitter, and he's mentioning he's very much a Labour supporter. He mentioned something about the climate, and I put underneath it, Piers Corbyn doesn't believe in global warming, and this other guy has put underneath that, well, we've all got a relative we want to leave in the basement. So I left for them the video, the fatal flaw in climate science, and that'll be it. I'll probably get an insult back at that next, They don't look into the details,
No.
But when it comes to the phones, a couple of things. Bring it back to society as a spectacle. There is work time and there is leisure time, and you must be spending your money during leisure time. And a couple of times when I've been on the train, you can look over somebody's shoulder or just see what they're doing on their phone. And I've seen people just going through hundreds and hundreds of pictures. You know, picking one, opening it a bit, close it, on to the next one. Hundreds and hundreds, often the pictures of themselves during their leisure time. Now, at the moment, they're on the train going to work, so they're going to look at the pictures from their leisure time yeah, while they're going to work.
Well,
That's the
this is
that's the narcissistic feedback loop in action. You know,
yeah.
that's what it is.
For a while, hopefully, it's going to keep shifting. I'll try and describe what I was thinking of while I'm saying that. A while ago, when they brought in the monetization on YouTube, and I remember saying at the time, this is going to be deliberately to get people to trip over themselves to sell any old bullshit for the dollar. And then we had the first lot of the ad apocalypse stuff when that methodology started getting implemented, and lots of people were like, oh no, what we're going to do, we're not getting money anymore, so we're going to have to change what we're talking about so that we can carry on earning money. And you could see how people's content just diverted in other directions. And over the last few years, we've had the rise of this kind of worker who operates within that illusion realm. I was listening to some people talking about Instagram and how ridiculous that platform has become. And I've sort of seen a little bit of it in the sense of I've met people who do that kind of stuff, and they do spend an inordinate amount of their time and energy being concerned and working towards how they are represented on their Instagram profile. So in other words, there is no honest photographs of them. Every picture of them on their Instagram profile has been manipulated in multiple ways, from the way the photograph is taken, the angle, the framing, the set decoration, to them using software to like airbrush themselves or whatever. These people are creating a career, or have been creating a career that's all about just selling imagery, selling illusion. And now we're getting to this stage where the censorship is now required to draw the fences in, as the technocracy is really starting to take shape, and the surveillance state needs its borders to be properly defined so that people can be categorized in or out of those borders. That means a lot of what they've been doing and how they've been going about it is becoming more obvious to the general populace. So more people are finding out of like, oh, so-and-so on Instagram doesn't really look like that. Whenever she posts a picture of herself, she uses Photoshop to trim it up and make herself look, oh, right, okay. And it's like seeing through the advertising illusion on old style TV media. A lot about this environment is now becoming obvious to people, that it's not like back in the late 80s, early 90s, where it was very nerdy and it was a bit like going to a library and you'd have to have some knowledge about how to operate the technology to get on the internet and to do stuff on the internet. And almost all the information you found on the internet was very academic and bookish. It was like pages and pages of text. It wasn't video. It wasn't music. Yeah. Whereas now it's nothing. It's not really like that. It's just another arm of media. It's another form of media. So therefore you get all that monetary influence and corporate influence involved. Yeah. I think more and more people are starting to realize that what they're seeing on the screen, whether it be a TV show or an online format presentation on whatever platform, it's on a screen. It's just as much make-believe as any Hollywood production
or television.
Yeah. I know that's not true for everything. I'm not trying to generalize everything on the platform into the same pot, because otherwise I'd have to throw myself in there as well. Yeah.
But more people are
more people are becoming more discerning over that kind of element, even to the point where they're aware of it, but they choose to not see it as a concern. They actually choose to join in the illusion. So they're like, yeah, I know he's fake, but he makes me laugh, so I like watching it, that kind of stuff. Yeah?
And that's one of the reasons why people don't cook anymore. They don't have time. I was going to save this till Wednesday, but this story is absolutely so unbelievable. This guy, has decided that, to save money, he's going to go to Waitrose and he's going to buy all the reduced sticker items for his weekly shop. Yeah. Now let's just take a look at the shite this guy is eating. Yeah. I'm not kidding you. Yeah. let's go to this. That day one's offerings: reduced bagels, salad, sausages, portion of mashed potato, and it goes on. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I mean, all packaged foods. I'm thinking, yo, you know, a kilo of rice, a kilo of flour. Yeah.
Last year a week.
It's unbelievable because it's funny you mentioned food because I've been away for a few days and eating out in various places and I do cook. I do like cooking. I've been doing it for years, and I have to say my food is much better than the shite I eat. Well, not shite, but it wasn't. It was all right. It's edible, but the portions you get and things like that, and the sort of selection and how they. Some of it's okay, but you think, wow, and the money they're charging, I should charge £30 a dish. I think something because
Yeah,
I enjoy my own. I enjoy my own food more.
Soylent Green pasty.
No, thank you. Man, well, that pizza looked horrible. Yeah, things like you just
He's not a hipster, is he?
no.
Do you
Look
think
how old he is. You can eat that shit at that age and get away with it up to a point, but as you get a bit older, if you keep that kind of diet,
it's just like native marketing for Waitrose, man.
of course,
Daily Mail shite that they pump out.
look at what we do. Oh, we can even feed cheap. You know, it's like well, you're not really. They're very expensive as far as I'm aware, aren't they? There's not one round here.
Yeah, Waitrose is the most expensive supermarket. It is, and they don't, you know, they don't pretend they're not. They claim it as like a badge of honor. They sell the best quality product. Only rich people shop in our shop. That is, reminds me a bit like some of the politicians who claim they can survive on unemployment benefit or universal credit money and whatever. It's like, what the fuck are you eating, mate?
If you kept that kind of diet, yeah, for any say period of 3 to 4 or 5 months, say just eating, you know, it's not doing you much good, and you'd feel it, you know. But it is a sort of sad state that's being pushed massively onto people because of the way lifestyles have become with work in long hours, and they haven't got time to cook and do things like that anymore. And you know, it's easy just to bung it all in the oven or the microwave, and do it that way.
On Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
there was more about their drones having priority or something. Oh no, they was going to be used in conjunction, weren't they?
yeah, and they're in negotiations for having delivery drones legislated so that they will be able to utilize the technology to deliver whatever their Amazon products or whatever it is they're selling.
Or your food in a box like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I can't. It's just one of those things that it's my point of view on a lot of this stuff. You know, sometimes it just totally bamboozles me that people don't see the ramifications of what's going on. Because when somebody like Bezos, a corporation like Amazon, is in contract and negotiating for further contracts with the state itself, and this is in particular in the USA, but don't think this won't be happening elsewhere, because of course it will. You know, he's actually dealing directly with the state to provide services, infrastructure services. That means it's going to become mandated that products provided by a provider such as Amazon will be able to be delivered to your house by drone, and you're not going to be legally able to, you know, block that drone in any way. All this kind of legislation that is leading us towards an Agenda 21, 2030 style technocracy environment. You will not own anything. Amazon will deliver your Soylent Green packages once a week. I know, again, it sounds like fear-mongering nightmare dystopia, but where else is this progressing to? Why would a private company, a corporation such as Amazon, need to be integrated into your state infrastructure?
Yeah. And sell you the idea through Black Mirror episodes and things of this nature, and this type of programming that they're putting out there, and it seems very popular.
It's so the drones can fly over the red zones.
Yeah.
The locked-in criminal zones.
You're saying about it's popular, mate. So that just makes me think, again, like Gary said, the society of the spectacle. It's another one of those things that makes me go, oh, because sometimes I feel very much that a lot of people are just into all this stuff because it's like they're enjoying the show while they're waiting to jump in the fire. You know, they're watching everybody else file past and being thrown onto the bonfire, and they're having a dance thinking, yeah, my turn next, I'm going to jump on the fire as well. Way, if we're all going to die, we might as well all, you know, go out in a blaze of glory. It's like Logan's Run.
You may as well have my biometrics then.
Yeah. It's like Logan's Run when they're all dancing around the machine before they float up in the air and go pop, you know, when they reach age 30 and they're not allowed to live anymore.
Carousel.
Yeah. This, I know it sounds often like we're talking about, you know, really nightmarish stuff. And I'm glad to be proven wrong when things don't go the way I'm suggesting. But if I don't point at this stuff, I feel that it's the same as if I was on the front deck of the Titanic and I saw the iceberg coming. If I didn't go and shout at the captain pointing at the iceberg, then I'm a cunt, ain't I? Yeah, so to me, I can see some of this stuff that is potentially rolling towards us. So I'm not going to be a cunt and not say anything about it. If it scares you, then maybe you just need to, you know, work through that fear and figure out why it's making you afraid and what options do you have that are practicable, i.e. you can actually do them in your life that may help divert you away from that danger. You don't want to be controlled by a technocratic system that is dictating everything you do, then put the fucking device down. Stop enabling it. That's how you help people who are addicted. You stop enabling them. It's as simple as that. You don't need to beat them. You don't need to, you know, try and somehow chemically change their body or whatever. No, just stop enabling their problem. Don't killed the conversation stone dead. So
no, we're listening to. We're still here.
I've only just noticed as well. We've gone past the hour, so maybe that's a good point.
So they're 10 here, 1010. So
again. Double numbers. I've been seeing a lot of double digits, mainly twos recently. Yeah, and I take that to be the 4, which, as I say, is a very grounding number. 4 is the number of the earth. And of course, you got the 4 corners and all that kind of stuff. But don't get stuck in the cube. So I was slightly distracting myself, scrolling up the chat. I'll say a quick hello. I can't scroll all the way back to the beginning, so if you're only here at the start in the chat, sorry if I miss you out. Meg Myth, hello. And Steve, hello Steve. Check out Steve's show on a Saturday night on Steve Tagoose channel. He does a mystery show on a Saturday night, and he's often talking similar topics, talking about things like we do, and he plays brilliant guitar and sings songs. So if you enjoy some genuine live music, give it a listen. Cheris Rosin, hello. And John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, hello. And that's a hell of a mouthful. Authentic Human Programming, hello. And Apple Charlotte, hello. Said hello to you. Said hello to you. CMB, hello. You like Marmite? You either do or you don't. Stephen Owens, hello. Eman Pudama, hello. And Gary in the room. Nick GB, hello. Scrolling down. Lotsum Tatro, hello. I think I said hello at the beginning, but hello again. Vasat, you have no avatar. That's terrible. How can you have no avatar? Does that mean you don't exist? Are you just a ghost in a machine? Age of Crocodilia, hello. Andy Manchester, hello. Scrolling down. Thanks for joining us, folks. Thanks for giving us your attention for a couple of hours. Sorry about the weird start or the messed up start. I'll try and make sure I'm looking at the screen properly before I click the button. not doing a half-assed job of like, oh, just click that while I get up out the chair, and I've missed. Oh shit, I've cancelled the show. That's what Trump will be doing. Like, he'll be reaching for his, deep fried banana sandwich, and he'll accidentally press the big red button. I know it's not that simplistic. It's just for comedy effect. Hang on. I thought that image was Plankton Breath. I saw the image, but it's got a different name. Ken Dodd's dad's dog's dead, Dave. Is he?
Oh, that one, yeah.
Dead, Dave. No wrong with dog's milk, Dave. Ken Dodd's dead. Super Leads, hello. There's nothing wrong with a bit of Ken Dodd. He could tickle your carburetor. And he wrote the best song ever, Happiness. It's the greatest thing a man possesses. Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah. His pride is so massive right now. I think it said hello to Super Leads. Dot, cannabis-based life form. Hello. I'm trying to scroll down quickly so that I'm not just filling up loads of empty air. Lynn Anderson, hello. I'd like to give a shout out every so often. I don't always do it, so please don't think that if you just jump in the chat room and wave your hands, I'm going to read your name out. I do it every so often to prove for those people who are just seeing the video after the fact or just listening that, yes, there are people there in the chat room. It's not just us talking to our reflections in a mirror. There are people there, and the chat room is there for people to join in if they choose to. It's not a requirement. It's just there as an extra functionality if you want to participate. Right. That's a good image to show, Gary.
Yeah. Good video as well. Absolutely worth watching. If you like maths, astronomy.
You read my mind there. I was going to say Nebra Star Disc. Go and check out our Megalithomania UK channel, because it's funny, that's popped in my head a couple of times the last few weeks. Just this Nebra Sky disc. Go and look into it. Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
It goes back 3,600 years.
I think my comment underneath was, this is the video that everybody else is going to copy, which is, because I mean the amount of information in there as well, it's really good.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's like you get videos like this and everybody takes a little chunk and they use the images and the information themselves. This is the original.
It's a good proof as well, the object and the analysis of it, what people are figuring out about it. To me, it's a good proof that people long before computers were able to use their brains in a really good way, such that they can come up with a device like this, because it is a
solstice calendar, isn't it? I'd say.
Yeah, you could call it a computer in a very loose fashion. It is a computational device. If you know how to utilize it, you can utilize it to make many different calculations about what's going on in the sky, in the solar system, etc.
Yeah.
That's a computer before computers. So, when people think about the concept of kind of, well, people can't do that, they need computers to figure out shit like that, mate. It's like, really? Did they? And this is from 3,000 plus years ago, yet supposedly we're only clever now. There's always this attitude. It's only modern people that are clever. Back in ancient times, they were all just running around in loincloths arguing over coconuts. No, stop it. I think as well, this is the rise of the information in things like this and other connections through to ancient knowledge like Göbekli Tepe and other sites, and chunks of knowledge and information that have come back to the forefront again or have been newly discovered, is part of the apocalypse, because apocalypse doesn't mean destruction, it means revealing, the opening of the box of secrets, the revealing of the knowledge that has been kept from you or hidden behind the veil so that you forget about it. No, it's coming back again. This is that shift in paradigm. The way you used to live will end, and the way you will now live will be something radically different that you've never conceived of. And I think a lot of people are getting back into this older knowledge because it grounds you. It reconnects you to your existence here in this physical realm, as they like to call it.
Yeah.
And it proves, like that device, it proves that people a long time ago had a lot of cognitive ability, you know,
skills, knowledge, everything.
Yeah.
You know, they were able to construct that, and like you say, in such a sophisticated way. And it's interesting, yeah, how it's always been sort of just, you know, shoved over to that side, or not really given enough attention by, you know, academic scholars and people like that, because initially that was considered to be fake, which was unbelievable, because it isn't, and they proved it wasn't through scientific methods of being able to age the bronze in it, which
But they-
deteriorates over time. So
And the corporate money thing again. The guy said, "What if it's because they tried to prosecute the guy that found it
yeah,
yeah.
for stealing, like, you know, crown or government property?" And he said, "Well, if it's fake, it doesn't matter. Then I can keep it, can't I?" Oh, wait a minute. No,
Classic. They were too uncomfortable with fitting it into their narrative. It destroys their narrative.
well, it predates the Egyptian stuff, which is what this guy was saying, and
Yeah.
you know,
That Antithecary device.
mm,
Do you remember that one? The clockwork eclipse calculator. Again, that's a computer. Before electronics, it was a mechanical computer to calculate the times of eclipses.
This is the Lucerne Caves in France, which I think 50,000 years. And they've got the Pleiades on there as well, Seven Sisters,
yeah.
and a couple of things. So, you know, this is people have been looking up at them for a long time. And that was, you know, the culmination, bringing all these things together.
Yeah. Yeah, so check that out if you've never heard of it before, folks. If you're interested, anyway, if you know, if you don't give a shit about that kind of stuff, then obviously don't bother. That's your choice. But if you want to know more, go and look it up. Check out the Megalithomania UK channel. They host quite a few videos covering topics like this. That's their forte. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, check it out. Right, I'm gonna leave it there because we have run over a bit, so it's a good time to click the button.
Cheers, Cookie.
Wednesday night we'll be on Reality Chat channel doing the Reality Chat when we talk about news events and other stuff, and we chat like we do now, but you know, we look at a lot of what's been going on in the news. Steve on Saturday night I've mentioned, and there's obviously other broadcasts going on all the time, lots of them, and they're not going away. Even though they're messing with YouTube, people are not going to give up on these subjects. And as I mentioned last week, and I've said a few times now, you know, if there's content creators that you like, bookmark their pages. If they've got a website or whatever, go and check their website and bookmark that, because the way YouTube is doing its thing is going to change, and people might just disappear or have the way they do their thing curtailed to such that they end up not being able to do it anymore. Yeah, there's been a few that I've noticed have not been around for the last several weeks now, and I'm looking, like, thinking I ain't seen nothing from them. Yeah, so it's getting that way again. But we're still here. We're still making noise while we still can. So, and we will just move somewhere else if we need to. So, yeah. Anyway, keep thinking, keep talking, keep looking, and thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll catch you again soon. Go choose and click the button.